Hello, brothers and sisters in Christ. And today I'm going to be doing the video I said I would be doing on the live cross-dressing ritual, you could say, or the living mannequins on display from the 80s. Every single person in this video today, I suspect, is a male, or hermaphrodite, or purposefully transgendered themselves. There are 3 clips that I'm going to be showing, and they're relatively short, and as usual, I say I'm going to not stop and pause a lot, and then I end up saying a little bit more. But I just want you to observe how ritualistically this was done, and they were placed on a window display as a humiliation ritual in a public way in the 80s. And this kind of thing doesn't happen in this way anymore. I get the feeling. They still have mannequins they have in department stores that are modeled by people in other countries I've seen in other videos, but as for walking down the street seeing this in your small town in America or in a big city, it doesn't happen too much nowadays. I've only heard stories of people who lived through that time in the 80s, specifically in major cities, and this would be something that you would see in a department store window. And they even made a movie about it in the 80s called Mannequin, and that person was also both genders as well. And the background behind that story in that movie is a good explanation, further explanation as to why they're doing this here now. This first pose that they're doing here, because I just wanted to point it out because you didn't get to see the thumbnail, was them doing the Baphomet pose, this person before you. And you can see it now, they're pointing up and pointing down. A lot of these people are the children of Freemasons who are being forced to give up their sexuality and gender because of their father's success. This is the case a lot of times, and this kind of thing does still happen. And the public way that it occurs most times is on TV, movies, commercials, and other forms of media. I'm going to play the clip now and notice how the makeup was back then and the fashion and how it was accommodated to disguise them back then as well as today. I'm going to turn it down a bit, brothers and sisters. This was the pose I was referring to as them doing the Baphomet pose. And in this way that they're posed, it does look more like they're trying to hold a torch of some sort, in which case many of you already know the background behind the Statue of Liberty and Ishtar. If you've ever seen the movie, it's a movie in the 80s that also it happened to be in the 80s as well. And it was, I think, called Working Woman or something like this. They were promoting that agenda, that second wave feminism, I believe. And it opened up with a wide shot of the the Hudson River and the Statue of Liberty. And it was, I believe her name was Carly Simon. And I was told as a child this was a legend, that I should never forget them for the rest of my life. This is what I was told, that they will go down in history as a legend. When I woke up to the transgender agenda, this person became a monster in my eyes as I saw who they truly were. I couldn't hardly look at them. So Carly Simon most likely will be another video down the line because of just how ferociously obvious that they are. But I just wanted to point out that they're possibly mimicking this pose here of the Statue of Liberty. And the Statue of Liberty is male and female, just like this individual, I believe, is as well. I like this shot because it does show the very male features that this model has. This person is also doing a pose. It may not look like it, but I told you about how long they've been doing some of these poses as I've looked at many portraits over the years that I've been awake, going back millennia. And when they have their pointer finger and middle finger separated, this is them representing the square out of the square and compass for Freemasonry. But it goes back to fertility cults in Egypt because they've been doing this since before the creation of Freemasonry in the United States, May 1st, 1776. Don't they look like real mannequins? I wonder how they keep so still, right? I seem to think there's witchcraft involved, but mostly them being male, because males have naturally more muscles, it means they can pose and stay still for longer amounts of time, I believe. Because otherwise, if it's not witchcraft or their male anatomy that is allowing them to stay this still like a mannequin, this wouldn't make any sense, right, brothers and sisters? This is a ritual. This is clearly a ritual of some sort. This is clearly a humiliation ritual of some sort, as they just got laughed at by the town folk who walked by. And I wonder now, did they really know what was going on when they were laughing at them? Or was it a natural reaction? It could have been that they knew back then people who were in these towns that would do this sort of thing, which in my eyes would usually be also a big military town as well, usually with the military base not too far away when these kinds of rituals are going down, because I live next to one of those towns that's next to an Air Force base, and they have this, but it's in real time, people walking around you um, all the time, every day, all day. So I just wondered, did they know back then? These were men who were dressed as women, pretending to model when it was meant to break their spirit and humiliate them. Isn't it sort of supernatural that they changed poses and look so, I don't know, just completely, it it did rattle me. Let's just say that, because when I see in the spirit sometimes, brothers and sisters, when I told you about how I can see people's spiritual body overlaying their physical body, or evil faces and things in the clouds on solid objects like walls and ceilings, and other objects, really any object that's not reflective. But even there, even on the mirror, I've seen handprints and things and faces there too. Okay? And these faces, once you look at them and the demons know that you're looking at them and you can spot them, um, sometimes I look back and the face is different, completely different than the way it was last time I looked at it, at the face, manifesting on some solid object. So it kind of reminded me of that, how they changed position and then held that position. Another option is that this could have been a fraternity setup here. That that could be an option as well, because they do this sort of humiliation ritual when people are being initiated into a fraternity. Because as I look at this young man who's not too far away from having a mullet, but they just dyed it with some lighter colors and put makeup and a dress on them, and I believe painted their nails as well. They look like they could have been on the football team. So I I hesitate to ask how they ended up in this position, these young men, but I've given some possibilities of how they ended up here. It's going to be up to you guys to think about how these people end up like this. It's a long road. It's a long road to something like this, down the road of perdition. Makeup is magic. That's a song by Gwen Stefani. They all tell you in the music because they have to. Just like in the book of Job, where Satan has to ask God if he can persecute Job. He has to get permission to deceive or pull tricks or anything like this, and it's all up to you whether you're going to fall into that grand illusion and disillusion. And if you do, God will give you over to it. Guaranteed, every time. This is not a female. The makeup and the cosmetic surgery and the hair manipulation will have one believing it could be. This is magic, aka witchcraft. Will you look at the size of that hand? My goodness, it's like it gets larger and larger and larger every time that they pan back to them. And the funny thing is that they don't look embarrassed. I wouldn't so much say funny as much as amusingly interesting how they don't seem to look embarrassed, like this is something that they're used to, or this is what they know they have to do, like it's a way of life, like it's a part of society, societal grand initiation, a passing of the torch almost. A lot of times that's what it is. This one almost reminds me of a drag queen sort of look, closer to that drag queen look. I mentioned before I woke up, I used to watch shows like RuPaul's Drag Race, and they talk about all of the secrets behind masking the masculinity that is then comes with being a male. And even though they're holding this ribbon, which I can't figure out why they're doing that, I guess they're modeling that as well. Or maybe it represents them being in bondage, or I really don't know. But you can see the size of those hands too. Just their build reminded me of a gay male, especially even from that era, because unfortunately, I do know this era pretty well based off of all the music videos I used to watch and other kinds of videos like pornography, unfortunately, which I'll have to tell a testimony about how I got delivered from that. But I do know what the male physique looks like at this time in the 80s specifically. And this is a male. I hopefully didn't need to point out the main features that pop out, but the main features that are going to pop out, if anyone's new here who's never noticed that society as a whole is made up of people who are described as the tares in the Bible, who are among the wheat, the hermaphrodites, people cross-dressing, doing something abominable which God said not to put on a woman's garment and a woman not to put on a man's garment because it's an abomination unto him. So um, I but I'll point out the features that they mostly would do operations on very quickly. They usually do trachea shave, or if they are female, they'll get an Adam's apple implant. They'll get a jaw shave. If they are a male, or a completely new jaw, or a chin implant. Nose job, trimming it down, completely having it a whole new nose replacement. Brow ridge, I don't know how they do that. I would think it would take a hammer of some sort to flatten it, but that's a feminine feature, so they might even go that far. But the brow ridge is also either covered up with bangs like here, or they get that done too to remove that sloping back forward hairline surgery. And those are the main ones that they get done. As far as I know, the ears and the hands, I don't know what operations they could do on that, because those are fine like motor skills type of thing. If they mess up their hands or ears, that could cause a lot of damage. But anyway, I wanted to point that out. Of course, I couldn't leave out the long neck. This is just a male neck. There's nothing really out of the ordinary about that, except for they shouldn't be wearing an outfit like this with their hair done like this. And the length of the hair is even. What they did there in the 60s when they told women to start wearing their hair shorter was they made it easier for people who are trying to pass as a female, because they don't have to grow their hair that long anymore. They can just grow it to like halfway down their neck, like how Julie Andrews did back then for like The Sound of Music. It was even shorter there. And in that movie, the original Parent Trap, that came out in, I believe, 1960 or 61, and the girl shaved off all of her hair, basically. They did a ritual on them, too, because that's when they cut their hair. Apparently, that's like, it does something to their MK Ultra programming, like how Britney Spears cut their hair. I heard by way of Sherry Shriner, which, again, I told you about their name, kind of makes me think there's something up about them. But they said some real things in these videos I watched when I was first waking up, like Black Child Productions and Yash Kara. They said that someone gave them a phone call. Their handler gave them a phone call before they went into that salon, and they cut all of Britney Spears' hair off. And that call triggered them to go in there and tell them to cut their hair off. It was their handler giving the slave a trigger to trigger their MK Ultra programming, and that's why they started crying, because the worst thing that you can do to somebody who has MK Ultra programming is to cut all their hair off, because it makes them have a breakdown. Okay? And that's just what this girl did. It was obviously a boy playing a girl's role in this Parent Trap movie in 1960 or 61, I believe. And they had a breakdown. And they showed this over and over again on these housewife shows and For the Love of Money on VH1, all these kinds of shows on reality TV shows type of thing. They totally put it out there. When they go to the salon and they start cutting off all their hair, and they usually break down. And I had a real experience with this almost lately, because I realized that I had some more programming that needed to be broken, and I'm thinking it came from Disney, because I watched Disney every day. And I almost had to cut my hair off because I had like a really big knot and then a few more knots that were hard to get out. And I was completely freaking out at the idea of cutting off my hair. And so I can attest to, I can personally admit to this this reaction when having to deal with the thought or the action being done of cutting off one's hair if under MK Ultra programming. Most people are under MK Ultra programming, so it's not just any celebrities out there on the TV. Okay, that's the end of, oh goodness, that's the end of the first video. And on to the second one, which I will be doing a lot less talking, hopefully. If you notice, they're also doing the Baphomet pose here. Of course, they're getting very close to doing the 666 hand sign. I want to throw out another option really quickly. These people could be the children of the parents of people in synagogues as well, because they do the same kind of rituals there as well that they would do in a lodge. Because I may have said before, excuse me, that the temple synagogues run the lodge. Another one doing the Baphomet pose. I wanted to say here that these dresses were designed to deceive. fashion in general is designed that way. Fashion is witchcraft because these people have been hiding for years, keeping themselves undiscovered for years through this. By the way that they pose, they're showing you here that when they pose a certain way, they can fool anyone to believing that it's a female. They know the tricks of the trade. And I wanted to say that simple waist training over the course of years or even months can create the female waist silhouette in a male very quickly. And there are differences between female waist and male waist, and obviously the entire anatomy, but the legs and how it may look like there's curvature while they're wearing the dress. This can be done with shapewear as well. But like I said, the dresses that were made themselves, in the first place, the dress itself was made to deceive. This person really strikes me as someone who could have been a handsome young man, especially at this time, considering how they had that more simplistic look. I'm not so sure on the exact year, but it's a general clip from the 80s, and it appears to be somewhere in the mid-80s. This is before they started to take the PEDs, the performance-enhancing drugs. If you don't know, brothers and sisters, but I'm sure you already know this is a huge problem that came up in that time from small towns all the way to professional sports, and it really changed the physique of, made something unnatural that shouldn't have never been. Then combined with this propaganda about working out like crazy, like thinking about you all the time, being self-centered and going to the gym to impress other people, like that started too. So, but seems to be at somewhere when that started, because these people they're not super buffed out, they're just like how they were when they were born, but except for they dressed them up as a female. And I wanted to point out the straight across clavicle that comes straight across, and the trapezoids that are enhanced. That wouldn't be the case if it were a female. In a way, they look traumatized. Brothers and sisters, and they look like they've lost pieces of their soul, which is obviously what happens if they've been in any of these options I listed off. Fraternity, sorority, because remember, it can go either way. They have had people who are both in both fraternities and sororities for years. Temple, synagogue, or the lodge. All these options, and military bases, because military balls, that's a cross-dressing ritual as well. And the fact that they filmed it lets me know. It lets me know indeed it was a ritual. That they filmed it. This is the third and final clip. As you may be able to notice, some of the models they do have this sadness, this deep sadness. I believe it's a possibility they were SRA'd. This kind of thing seems almost impossible to stand this still, except for, say, the only thing I can think of similar in my life is being in marching band that I used to be in for 7 years, somewhere between 6 to 7 years, marching band, and they do tell you to stand very still. There's a lot of ritualistic things there too, but I don't understand how they could do that unless there was some witchcraft involved, pairing with the fact that they have extra abilities to stand still due to more muscle structure being a male as opposed to a female. But I'm really leaning more towards witchcraft. Obviously, that's another Masonic hand sign, aka demonic hand sign. This person has to be the most passing out of all of them. I wanted to point out, excuse me, I wanted to point out the faces that I see on people and objects. Here are the eyes, the nose, the snout, nose, nostrils, the mouth. This entire thing is a face. These are demons on people. Everyone has them. Deliverance is important. But even there, it takes a long time, depending on the sin that you were into, the sins that you got into. It's a long process to deliver people. There's multiple faces that I'm seeing on these models, but I just wanted to point that out, that's also a factor. And if they look down, if they were able to see this sort of thing, which sometimes I think witches and wizards can see this thing and they're satisfied by the idea of it having all these demons and things, I wonder if they can see some of these things we see as believers in Christ sometimes with eyes to see, but I'm not sure. But it's even if you look down at your flesh, you can see, well, using eyes to see, there are faces on your flesh as well, because that's what causes you to sin, your flesh, and everything else, like eat, drink, be merry, that kind of thing. I'm not sure. I believe it's night. Let me increase the brightness. I believe it's night time now, and they're still in the window. This is really sad, brothers and sisters. They've been there all day. This is, I called out that spirit of disbelief before. Whenever I seem to laugh sometimes, I'm trying to cope. I'm trying to believe what I'm seeing right here. I definitely don't want to appear to have any insensitivity towards them. This is my way of, this is the spirit of disbelief and unbelief as well. because of this sort of thing is not natural. You don't see this every day. I've never seen this in my entire lifetime. Many of you may have not either. But this really happened to these people. They had to sit there in the window, stand there really, all day until it got dark out. Oh, I thought it was dark out because it got so dark. But my gosh, it must have been the camera. But still, it appears that they're stuck. It must be like sort of a symbolism or a representation. It's definitely a ritual. And then you'll recall possibly that social media trend called the Mannequin challenge. This is, and this isn't new. They've been doing this for hundreds of years. I'm guessing, not in this way, but parading their men, parading their sons around as daughters. Gosh, it seems like one of the most blasphemous things you can do. It's so many things at once. Offering your child up, because if this is one of those situations where it's temple or lodge, then they started as a child. Even a possibility of that if they're in a fraternity or sorority, because a lot of them are feeder. The secret societies feed into those fraternities and sororities, feed into more secret societies. As I've said, them changing position is quite disturbing, because it's really spiritual to me. How they change position or change faces, change poses. As I see in the spirit, demons doing the same thing. Doing more Masonic hand poses. My goodness, brothers and sisters, I don't know what to say except for I am so grateful that someone had a camera recording this, and I hope it was not for embarrassment reasons, but because they were fascinated. And even if they were recording it out of the fact that it was a ritual, and they record rituals no matter what it is, to blackmail, embarrass the person later, they probably never thought this would end up on the internet too, might I add. I don't think they would have ever imagined this would end up on the internet one day. So it could have been recorded for a numerous amount of reasons, but I'm glad that whoever recorded it, and uploaded it, because many people probably find it nostalgic, and I at one time probably would be swept away with like nostalgia, because I don't know why I have nostalgia for eras I didn't exist in, but I had that really bad issue of living in the past, and so for a long time, um, it was amusing to me to see other eras and how they dressed and things like this. But I want to say two more possibilities that it's going to hit home for some of you guys, because you probably always wondered about how they get to be prom queen. And this is another option I'm throwing out there because prom queen. I'm throwing it out there because a lot of those people who were running for homecoming court were also both genders as well. They never told you, they don't have to tell you a word. You'll never know. They're not going to confirm it. Obviously not enough substantial evidence for any of this to hold up in a court of law. That's not the point. That's not the point. And lawyers, the movie Devil's Advocate tells about all that anyway. So it doesn't matter if none of this could hold up and be proven in a court of law that these people are transgender, because some people will take it to that level to try to discredit or gaslight you or hamper you down when you're telling the truth, right? Or that you don't have enough evidence when they closed down most of the libraries, or they renovated them and took out most of the books. And then you look online and they say that doesn't count. And I look onto websites like the Library of Congress and they say you aren't allowed to check out any books unless you attended in person and you're a high-ranking representative or you are a librarian who works there. So then how would you do so-called proper research? I have a library down the street that's thankfully still open, but it's on a college campus that I'm not really interested in going in the library. As one, I was being spied on, and a demon was in back of me one time, like 2 shelves behind me. And because I was like, I wonder if they have those kind of books in this library when I still attended the university, like books on the cold or whatever. Because I was like, I just wonder, would they really have that here? And I looked, and then all of a sudden I saw something out of the corner of my eye move in back of me. When I turned around, I said no. And I just walked away. And on the first floor of this library, I know I'm doing a tangent here, and on the first floor of this library, they had all these first editions from books that I don't know how much it could have cost to get their hands on. So, in a way, libraries are, they say the word haunted, but that's not accurate. It's always demonic. They're not ghosts, they're demons. So, in a way, they want you to do research, but I said, brothers and sisters, they curse the books, they put spells on the books, and they ask demons to go follow every book that they make a copy off the first copy of the original book, just like they do the records, their master tape. And every copy after that has demons on it, so that follow it, all the copies. That's why I don't have any records anymore. That's why I don't have any tapes, because I used to like listening to even tapes and stuff from back in the day. And, it's a whole scheme. This the appearance of nostalgia sometimes isn't everything that it seems. So, but I wanted to say that some of you guys may have not known. You were surrounded your whole life. Even they were at school with you and running for prom, court. And there was one other thing as an option I wanted to put out, that these people may have just been moving through the town as victims of human trafficking. And because a lot of businesses are fronts, like say the massage parlors and the nail shops where they're enslaved, that's a viable option. But I wanted to add one more thing, that at the time with the show Dynasty out, this created more of an excuse for them to get away with something like this and pawn it off as they're being inspired by the show's fashion, because that fashion from the show inspired like collections and things and wardrobes and gowns and things. I believe at Macy's, and so maybe they were doing their own hometown version of that, because that show was a huge deal back then. They say, and So maybe they were inspired by that. And they were all cross-dressing in that show as well, especially Linda Evans. I know that might hurt some people who may have been around, excuse me, for that era, because it was huge. The soap opera era consisted of changing the patterns in fashion and direction of society and how women acted and how men acted. It was a big deal. So they know they can shift culture through these, even something as minute as this cross-dressing ritual from the 80s. I want to thank you for watching, and I just wanted to put this out there. I found it very interesting. So I thank you for watching, brothers and sisters, and the next video is going to be about Raven Simone. This is a person that I watched nonstop, basically my whole life. I would say at one point I probably idolized them, probably around 8 years old, somewhere in there. And I have to do 2 or 3 videos about them. I'm not sure yet because of what I've found on them. Everything from voices manifesting themselves in interviews while their mouth is not moving to them using the FBI declassified pedophile codes in a commercial bumper on Disney Channel and an interview with Oprah and Bill Cosby. So I just wanted to give you a preview of that. And also another clip about the MK Beta sex kitten programming that came with the movie Cheetah Girls, because I was completely taken away with that Cheetah Girls movie, so I have to obviously expose it. I don't think I've done that yet. So, it's completely wicked agenda behind that whole movie, beyond the MK Beta sex kitten as well, and a component with what we've been talking about lately, how they have to sell their soul and all that. So, but I thank you guys for watching again, and I love you all, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.